My name is Evan Carter. I'm 39, a systems engineer living just outside Denver, Colorado. I've always been the kind of man who believes in routines. Wake up at 6:30, protein shake, gym, shower, work, dinner by 7, Netflix, or a book by 9, then sleep. Life isn't glamorous, but it's comfortable. Or at least it was. I've been married to Heather for almost 11 years. She's a senior marketing executive at a large firm downtown. And when I say she's good at her job, I mean it. Confident, articulate, beautiful in that crisp-blouse, red lipstick, don't mess with me kind of way. She was the type of woman who walked into a room and turned heads without trying. And for years, I felt lucky, grateful even, that she chose me. We had our routines, too. Wine on Fridays, hiking trips every second Saturday, brunch on Sundays at the Hollow Bean Cafe. She wore her wedding ring always. Always. Heather wasn't sentimental about a lot of things, but that ring, it mattered to her. Or so I thought. It started with a message request on Instagram from a guy named Trent Mason. I didn't know him, but his profile photo showed a man in business casual, maybe mid-30s, with a small golden retriever. Nothing threatening. The message read, "Hey man, I know this is probably awkward, but I think you deserve to know. I work with your wife at Argent Marketing. I've seen something that's been bothering me for a while. Thought I should reach out." My heart thudded a little harder. I stared at that message for minutes. My thumb hovered over the screen. Finally, I typed, "What do you mean?" A few minutes passed. Then he replied with 5 photos. Photos of Heather. At work. In conference rooms. At happy hour. Walking through the office. Without her wedding ring. At first, I told myself it meant nothing. People take their rings off for work sometimes, right? Maybe her fingers swell? Maybe she's afraid of losing it while typing? But this wasn't once or twice. This was dozens of photos, all clearly showing the absence of the gold band I'd slipped on her finger a decade ago in front of 120 friends and family. I scrolled, zoomed, stared. My hands were shaking. I asked Trent, "Why are you sending me this?" His reply, "Because I've seen her get very close with one of our VPs, Jason Fields. She laughs differently around him. They're often the last 2 in the office. People talk. I didn't want to get involved. But then I saw her touch his arm. More than once. Always without the ring. I figured, if it were me, I'd want to know." I didn't respond. That night, I watched Heather get home like nothing was wrong. She poured a glass of wine, kicked off her heels, and told me her team was buried in a product launch. No mention of Jason. No mention of taking her ring off. I stared at her left hand. She was wearing it now. Over the next few weeks, I watched her closely. She began working late more often. She was on her phone more. Texts came in at odd hours. Sometimes she smiled at them, then locked her screen fast. I knew better than to snoop through her phone. We had rules, boundaries. But one night, curiosity turned into compulsion. She was in the shower. Her phone buzzed. A preview flashed. "Jason F. Still thinking about our chat. You're something else. H." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew. I called Trent the next day. Yes, called. I needed to hear his voice. I needed to make sure he wasn't some internet troll. He answered on the second ring. "I'm sorry, man," he said immediately. "I hated sending those photos. I hate this situation. Can you tell me more about Jason Fields?" I asked. Trent hesitated, then said, "He's slick, divorced, charismatic. He goes after what he wants. I've seen him do this before. Heather's not the first." I felt bile rise in my throat. "What do you mean?" I asked. He had an affair with a woman in finance last year. Ended her marriage. Quietly. He's charming, persuasive. And Heather, well, she lets her guard down around him. The next words from him sealed everything. They'd been seen leaving together. In his car. Twice. Late. I thanked him, hung up, and went numb. I needed proof. Something more than whispers and photos. I hired a private investigator. 2 days later, I was sitting in my car on a side street near her office. I'd taken the day off. The investigator, A wiry guy named Rick sat in a beat-up SUV down the block. At 6:12 p.m., Heather exited the building, alone at first. Then Jason joined her. They laughed. She touched his shoulder. No ring on her finger. They got into his car. Rick followed. So did I. They drove to a quiet wine bar in Cherry Creek. Not the kind of place you go for a quick debrief. The kind of place you go on a date. Rick snapped photos. I sat in my car, heart hammering like a war drum, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. They stayed for over an hour. Then Jason walked her to her car. He leaned in. He kissed her cheek. Too slow. Too familiar. She smiled. And still no ring. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling. Images flickering through my mind like a film I couldn't pause. The ring. The text. The kiss. I printed the photos. All of them. The next evening, I made dinner. Set the table like normal. Chicken marsala, her favorite. Wine. Candles. I smiled. She smiled back. Halfway through dinner, I said, "You know what's funny?" She looked up. "What?" "You haven't worn your ring to work in weeks." Her face froze for half a second. Then composure. "Oh, I take it off to avoid scratching my laptop." "That's interesting," I said, sliding a manila folder across the table, "because I've got a dozen photos that say otherwise." She didn't touch the folder. She just stared at it, then at me. "What is this?" "Open it." She did. Her mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. "I know about Jason," I said quietly. "I've seen the messages. I've seen the photos. I know everything." She sat back, her face pale. Evan, it wasn't," she stammered. "It's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like." She blinked hard. Tears started to form. "Please, let me explain." I stood up. "I don't need an explanation, Heather. I needed honesty. I needed you to respect our vows. Instead, you took off your ring like it was some costume you could shed when it suited you. Evan, please, can we talk about this?" Her voice cracked. "I'm done talking." I left her there, with the photos, with the lies. The divorce took 6 months. It turned out Jason didn't want anything serious. Once Heather's marriage started unraveling, he distanced himself. Classic predator. She tried to apologize. She begged, wrote letters, showed up at my sister's house once, crying. But by then, the damage was done. I moved out of our house and started over in a small loft near downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Honest. Quiet. Some nights, I still think about the look on her face when I slid that folder across the table. Not with satisfaction, but with sorrow. Like watching something once beautiful burn slowly to ash. I kept one of the photos. The clearest one. Heather standing next to Jason, laughing. No ring on her hand. I keep it not out of spite, but as a reminder that some betrayals wear suits and lipstick, that some lies don't need words. They slip silently onto bare skin where a promise used to be, and that even the strongest routines can shatter under the weight of a truth too sharp to ignore.